Hello, and welcome to another Rangroo's unit of the week. And today we're taking a look at the Strela-2 man-pad. So, with the advent of newer, faster, deadlier aircraft, there's a need for newer, faster, and deadlier anti-aircraft systems. I mean, we first started using machine guns and cannons to shoot down biplanes and propeller planes out the skies. But by the 50s and 60s, anti-aircraft missiles, SAM sites, were becoming much more prevalent and powerful. But these SAM sites were big and bulky to set up, and the individual infantryman didn't really have a defense against aircraft. So starting around in the 60s, there was a desire for a man-portable air defense system, man-pads. The Americans were some of the first to really attempt it with the Red Eye, but the Soviets weren't too far behind them, as in 1970 they ended up accepting into service the Strela-2. Now, these early man-pad systems weren't exactly effective in the actual shooting down of aircraft. Their two main problems was the lack of lethality, as it's a small warhead to make it bloody portable, and also the rather short range. You can only really shoot direct threats which are flying right over you. However, that's not really the point of a man-pad system. The point of a man-pad system is more of a self-defense weapon. It's to deter people from bombing you to bits. Because if you're flying over an AO and you're going to bomb some people, if they're not shooting anything at you, you can just fly around willy-nilly and take your leisurely time. However, if missiles are coming at you, and these missiles can come from anywhere, it's not these massive SAM sites, it can be a forest, a tree line, near a building complex, you're going to be a bit more on edge. And so you're probably not going to be as accurate, you're not going to take your time, you're just going to try to get in and out, which improves the dudes on the ground ability to not get blown up. But speaking more back on the Strela-2 side, of course, throughout the Cold War, the Soviets ended up introducing Strela-3 and Igla, which were much more effective man-pad systems, but the Strela-2 would see a lot of service and a lot of conflicts in the Cold War, and even today, because they just made and exported so many of them, anywhere as frontline military units, in guerrilla insurgencies, and also for terrorist attacks as well. In-game, the Strela-2 man-pad system is a 5-point unit, available to the East Germans, Czechs, Poles, Finns, North Koreans, and the Chinese have a copy too. It has 2 weapons. The first weapon, depending on country, will be some sort of small arm. In this case, it's an AK. I know the Finns get a bloody Mosin, which is interesting to say at least. It's really just the bare minimum of self-defense, and also as a secondary anti-aircraft weapon if a helicopter decides to fly a little bit too close. Then you have the Strela-2 man-pad, with 6 missiles available, fire and forget, a range against helicopters of 2.1 kilometers, 1.6 kilometers against aircraft, a whopping 30% accuracy, 3 HE, and a decent reload time of 6 seconds. It's a very underwhelming weapon system. If it does hit, it's not going to do a whole lot of damage, and you're going to get relatively close to actually hit anything to begin with. Down to miscellaneous stats, no armor whatsoever, as it is just gritty flesh. A 2-man team with very small size, medium optics, a speed of 15 kilometers an hour, regular training, very good stealth, and has, well, not a whole lot of type restrictions, and also depends on the country you're bringing it in with. Oh, the Strela-2 is, well, one of the cheapest units in game to begin with, at only 5 points, the cheapest a unit can be in war game. Well, before that there was the 1-point trucks, but that no longer exists anymore. So, I think this really comes down to a very interesting question. Are cheap man-pads any good? Because on the ATGM side, we've talked about the Forgo quite a bit, cheap ATGMs can be extremely bloody effective, because you can just kind of put them in a place, they are not accurate or powerful, but you can still blow up lightly armored targets, and there's a lot of those in Wargame, and also it's just the threat detection of, hey, I'm being shot at from missiles. You don't really have the time to zoom in to see those missiles. So you're just going to try to evade those missiles, whether it's a Fago or Concourse. And in the man-pad world, I think the answer is more of a mixed bag. Because on one hand, these are cheap. 5 bloody points, you can very easily spam out a whole lot of Strela-2s. And the availability as well is extremely generous on these cards. So even though they are inaccurate, they don't hit well, they have short range, you can very easily get a 4 stack of these, and then you have full missiles going towards the enemy. If, you know, only a few of them hit, so be it. It will still probably be enough to ward off helicopters. But there's also the element of surprise, and with the cheap man pads, you kind of lose at lethality with that element of surprise, because if you just bring out a better man pad, like an Igla, for example, that better damage and hit chance is going to be much more important, because you usually have a very small window to engage, well, aircraft especially, but also helicopters, so trying to have a good lethal amount of firepower out in that short window is pretty important. Or with ATGMs, a lot of times the expensive ATGM missiles miss, because they're wire guided, while with man-pad, it's fire and forget. You shoot, and then you scoot. Really, this whole cheap man-pad deterrent strategy, I say, it only work in specialization decks where you get more infantry slots, like mechanized or motorized, because it is still a very niche role of using it to ward off against helicopters and their targets by bluffing your opponent, yet there's actually more deadly weapon systems in the area. And it's a bit more easier, I'd say, to detect get your opponents to spam in Strela-2s, because all the missiles are going to be missing. And if it's not a whole lot of Strela-2s, you can actually risk the anti-aircraft defenses and rush your Apaches or planes or whatever, and just blow them up if you so desire. I guess there's also another nice benefit of the Strela-2 is that, well, if you buy it with a 5-point transport, you got cheap transports you can just spam everywhere as well, while also getting some cheap but not very effective air defense. Overall, to be honest, I'm not really too sure what to make of cheap man-pads. You don't really see them a whole lot in competitive 1v1s, so there's probably a very good reason why people do not take these things to begin with. But I do think they do have some sort of use which could actually be applicable. I very much want to leave this one a bit more open-ended, so feel free to put in the comments below your opinion on cheap man-pads. I know for me, personally, one of the main reasons I actually really like using them is it just sends a lot of pretty missiles into the sky and it just looks cool. It's like the same reason I use a shulker, it's just lots of Dakar in the air. And well, I'm going to leave it off at that. This has been another Rang Rouge unit of the week. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and usual, please just take it easy.